Hello and welcome back to the world of the spirit consciousness. This is the continuation of the book study session on the etheric double. We are in the middle of module 6, which deals with certain applications outlined in the book. This module, the sixth module, covers chapters 17, 18, 19, dealing with topics of healing, mesmerism, and shields. This particular video deals with mesmerism. So we've already discussed healing in the previous video of this module. Now we will be looking at mesmerism. We'll be covering origin and introduction, the fact that it is not restricted to humans. The impact of mesmerism will be discussed. The process of mesmerization will also be discussed. Caveats, its comparative versus hypnotism, and with healing by will force. So origin and introduction. So mesmerism was discovered by Franz Frederick Mesmer, who was born between 1734 and expired in 1815. He was a doctor of Vienna. He was a German doctor as per Wikipedia, and this was discovered in late 18th century. So Franz Mesmer figured that he could treat patients with the help of forces emitting from his hand. So he named this phenomenon as animal magnetism. So in mesmerism, the operator pushes back the patient's own magnetism and replaces the same with his own. So the effect of mesmerism is that the patient loses all sensation in the part of body which has been mesmerized. So since the etheric matter is a bridge between the astral body and the physical body, the removal of etheric matter results into loss of sensation. Withdrawing the vital fluid in this process has no effect on the blood circulation. The specific area where mesmeric healing is provided remains warm. Thus, in mesmerism, the patient is fully conscious and only that part which requires healing shall become numb by anesthesia. So many minor as well as major surgical operations have been performed by mesmerism. For instance, in the 1850s, a surgeon called Dr. Elliotson performed major operations using mesmeric anesthesia in London. So before chloroform was utilized to give anesthesia during surgeries, operations were extremely painful. So I'll just give an analogy from here. So what used to happen earlier is that if a person had to be operated and there was no chloroform, so a person in full waking consciousness without any local or general anesthesia, he would undergo a surgical procedure. So you could imagine how tough it was. So I was also reading somewhere that during Second World War, when soldiers' limbs had to be amputated at times, unfortunately, so four other soldiers would hold down the wounded soldier while his limb would be amputated. So these were the times that we have seen, and that is when mesmerism was used. Coming back, so important recorded references of mesmeric operations include Mesmerism in India, first published by 1842 by Dr. S. Dale, The Rationale of Mesmerism by A.P. Sinnett. So this book contains graphic representations of works by Dr. S. Dale and Dr. Elliotson and is highly recommended. So the Buddhist Parit or the Pirit ceremony, which literally translates to blessings, is a fascinating example of providing magnetic or mesmeric healing. So monks are seated in a circular or square formation, holding a clothesline thick rope. The other end of the rope is dipped into a large vessel of water. For several days, monks recite texts from scriptures with a firm intent and will to bless. This water thus becomes very highly charged with magnetism and is then distributed to people for consumption. People who are sick may also hold the string connected to the rope. So mesmerism is not restricted to humans. So in plants, so mesmerization of plants is possible to produce tangible and specific results in their growth. It was consciously practiced by very few people in the Western countries. It was believed that some people had a lucky hand when it comes to plants, flowers, etc. A common reason for this was the constitution of the etheric and other bodies and his relationship with the elementals. The latter, driven by those elementals, are more dominant in his or her vehicles. So coming to nature spirits, so nature spirits have weakly developed will and have a negligible sense of responsibility. Thus, they can be easily dominated by mesmerism. They can then be used in many ways to carry out the will of the magician, and the task given to them will be surely executed provided it is within their powers. So, humans that have died recently and whose astral bodies are hovering nearby can also be mesmerized. So, impact of mesmerism. So, the effect of mesmerism is that the patient loses all sensation in the part of body which has been mesmerized. Withdrawing the vital fluid in this process has no effect on the blood circulation, which we had already discussed, and the specific area where mesmeric healing is provided remains warm. Thus, in mesmerism, the patient is fully conscious, and only that part which requires healing shall become numb by anesthesia. So, a notable result occurs when a healer replaces the patient's magnetic fluid with one's own, and that is the sensation experienced by the healer can be felt by the patient and vice versa. Suppose the arm of a subject has been mesmerized by the healer's own vital fluid. Consequently, if the operator's arm is pricked, the patient may feel it too. That is because the nerve ether of the mesmeric healer has been linked to the patient's brain. As a result, the patient's brain thinks that sensation was felt in one's own nerve ether and hence responds to that stimuli. This interesting occurrence is called magnetic sympathy, and there are numerous examples of it in books about mesmerism. Taking it a step further, so instead of removing the vital fluid from a specific part of the patient's body, the healer does so from the patient's brain and replaces it with his or her own vital fluid. In such a situation, the patient becomes fully unconscious. The healer can thus control the subject's body, making it do whatever the healer desires. So, as already seen, withdrawing the vital fluid in this process has no effect on the blood circulation. This therefore may explain why, according to theosophy, the prana or the vital force is present in two main forms, namely energizing prana in the etheric body and automatic prana in the dense body. So the etheric system has two clear divisions. So one is the unconscious related to the sympathetic nervous system. Second is the conscious and voluntary related to the cerebrospinal system. So while it is possible to mesmerize the conscious part, the same cannot be said of the unconscious part. Thus, a mesmerist cannot affect very important body functions like circulation of blood or of breathing. So the process of mesmerization, so while initially we studied that mesmerization involves sending magnetic fluid via hand, but the use of hand gestures to mesmerize is not essential. So hand gestures may be used to help the mesmerist in imagining or concentrating the magnetic fluid. Anything that aids the healer's imagination, making the belief strong, hence strengthening the will to mesmerize. Experienced mesmerists, however, can provide the healing by simply looking at the patient and exercising his or her own will. Several caveats in this powerful process. So it is absolutely vital that the mesmerist himself, herself is healthy mentally, physically, and astrally, because the healer's emanations also pass on along with the fluid. Hence, the possibility of transferring physical diseases to the patient. In addition to that, the astral and mental matter also get transferred, leading to the possibility of transferring moral as well as mental diseases. Further, the healer may also obtain a major influence on the patient, consciously or unconsciously, the power of which is unfathomable. The qualities of the healer can easily be transferred to the patient, and hence there is a possibility of danger from this perspective. So, mesmerism should be used exclusively for healing purposes only. Conducting mesmerism for any other purpose whatsoever is strictly unadvisable, and it should be done by someone who you trust fully to not take advantage of their mesmeric abilities. So, a quick comparison between mesmerism and hypnotism. So, hypnotism is quite different from mesmerism. The word hypnotism is derived from the Greek word hypnos, which literally translates to sleep. Thus, hypnotism precisely means the hard art of putting to sleep. So, this is generally caused by minor stress to the nerves or the eyes, etc., and overall, it is not a harmful condition to be in. It could, however, end in a good or a bad state. Often, it makes the person in question numb to pain, and for some time, it can give the system a helpful rest. So, it is chiefly a self generated condition which puts the subject under the power of the healer in a significant or a minor way. Hence, the person in question may feel obliged to follow the orders of the healer. This depends on three factors: the nature and character of the subject, the level of hypnosis, and the expertise and potential of the healer. So, mesmerism compared with healing by will force. So, mesmerism gains an advantage over healing of diseases by will force on the physical plane. So, in the case of healing by will force, there is always a possibility that the disease has been removed temporarily from the physical plane but remains in other planes like mental, astral, etc. Due to this, the disease cannot be fully cured from the physical and acts as a hindrance to complete healing from the ailment. So, practicing mesmerism for providing has no such dangers. So, the next video over here is on shells and shields. Stay tuned.